Nantucket sailing ship out for one goal: to find the white whale! As the wind picks up, the Pequod spots another ship in the far distance. From the manned mastheads aboard the ship, the Pequod can tell they have encountered a fellow whaling ship. However, as the wind is against them, the Pequod cannot sail to greet them. Thus, the crew must resort to interpreting the signal of the whaling ship. Like the Marines, the American whaling ships have signals collected in a book in order to recognize each other on the ocean. Ah, the Jeroboam, a fellow ship from Nantucket. As the ships both recognize each other, the Jeroboam goes close to the Pequod and releases a ship for rendezvous. While the seas were rough, the Pequod and the Jeroboam ship are able to adequately communicate. Unbeknownst to the crew of the Pequod, the Jeroboam was suffering a horrible disease on board the ship, so the Captain Mayhew, was hesitant of getting too close to the Pequod so the disease could not be spread. However, as Stubb looks overboard, he sees a face he recognizes.
That's he! The long-tongued scaramouch the townhouse company told us of!
Stubb is alluding to a time when the town ho told the Pequod of a man most notorious in the whaling community. Let us dig deeper into this man. He had been nurtured in the crazily emphatic Shakers community, where he became a prophet. He then left the Shaker community, where he ventured to Nantucket. Here, he looked aboard a whaling ship for a voyage. Having just left Nantucket, however, he went suddenly crazy and claimed he was the Archangel Gabriel. Then commanded the captain to jump overboard and created a manifesto claiming control over all of Oceanica and the isles upon it. The intensity and earnestness in which this man believed he was Gabriel was enough to convince a majority of the ignorant crew. The Captain Mayhew intended to dispose of him at the nearest port, since Gabriel did not heed to his commands whatsoever. However, as Gabriel had many fearful disciples among the crew, they went to Mayhew demanding Gabriel stay aboard lest they desert at the nearest port. Furthermore, as disease swept the crew, Gabriel claimed divine authority over the disease, further terrifying the crew to do his bidding. With the story told, the crew now knew the man they faced.
I fear not thy epidemic, man! Come on board!
Think of the fevers, yellow and bilious. Beware of the horrible plague.
Gabriel, thou must either. Oh no, a wave!
Oh no, a wave!
Hast thou seen the white whale?
Think of thy whaleboat, stove it and sunk.
I tell thee again, Gabriel, that...
As the ship finds its place after being hit by a wave once again, Gabriel finds himself eyeing the sperm whale head, which Stubb killed earlier in the voyage, with apprehensiveness. Mayhew then tells the crew of the Pequod about the run-in with Moby Dick, but not without the constant interruptions of Gabriel. However, not long after the Jeroboam's voyage from Nantucket, Gabriel warned against the slaying of the white whale, claiming it as the Shaker god incarnate.
Incarnate? More like carnivore.
Why not you on this thought?
I know many of you are asking, who is Gabriel? Why did Melville make Gabriel a shaker? Why does Gabriel, who claims to be an archangel, also claim to be shaker?
I didn't know angels could shake!
Well, the answer is this. The Shakers were a Protestant sect in the 1800s who were very religious. The reason Melville decided to make Gabriel a Shaker is because the Shaker doctrine relies heavily on faith, fitting in to the book's theme of predestination. Sounds like somebody's been doing an awful lot of shaking. Salt shaking. When Gabriel calls Moby Dick a Shaker god, it not only shows the mysterious divinity of the whale, but also the theme that everyone has a higher authority above them. It also shows that Ahab's quest is like wrestling with God, and hints that the quest might not end so well. But what about this Jeroboam? What's a Jeroboam? Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, in the Bible, Jeroboam was a king of northern Israel who chose to worship idols over God. He ignored the prophet Ahiah's warnings. As a result of ignoring the prophet, the house of Jeroboam fell. In the chapter, Captain Mayhew of the Jeroboam largely ignores Gabriel's spouts of prophecy, causing a disease to fester on the ship and the entire ship to suffer as a whole. Now that you have some background on this chapter, let's return to the Pequod's voyage. Hopefully it won't take 2 years to return.
2 years after the remark by Gabriel of the divinity of Moby Dick, a crew member, Harry Macy, spots the white whale from the masthead. Despite the warnings of Gabriel, Macy and a group of the crew go out to hunt the whale. As the white whale surfaces, it smites Macy from the deck of the ship, and he flies 50 yards into the water and dies. However, not a single chip of wood from the boat nor a hair on the head of the crew was harmed.
Oh, back already? Well, let me just put up my guitar so I can explain the story to you. Now, Gabriel's prophecy did come to pass, as he who challenged the whale did violently perish. Considering that Gabriel thought Moby Dick was a god, as well as most of the crew members that he convinced this judgment on Macy does seem like God's judgment. Not only is God's judgment swift, but it is also precise, as not a single chip of the boat, nor a single hair on the head of a crew member was harmed. The power of Moby Dick, the power of God, and the consequences for disobeying the prophet are shown. And if the prophet's anything like my parents, Moby Dick would then take away my car keys and my phone. But I know at the end of the day, I know he will love me because I am his little boy. He has nurtured and cared for me since birth, and no matter what, he will always love me.
Now back to...
Hey, shut the camera off and turn it off! Told her, shut the camera off, save a battery. Now it's not. Shut off.
Once the crew learned of the death of Macy and the prophecy which Gabriel professed, it strengthened the terror of the crew members and solidified their belief in his proclamations. However, from all of the questions being raised by Ahab concerning the white whale, Gabriel was suspicious.
Do you wish to hunt the white whale?
Oi!
Think of the blasphemer, dead and down there.
Captain, I have just bethought me of my letter bag. There is a letter for one of thy officers. If I mistake not, Starbuck, look over the bag.
The letter that is found for the Jeroboam is old and moldy. The postman for such a letter might have been death itself.
Canst not read it? Give it to me, man. Aye, it's but a dim scrawl. What is this? Mr. Har? Yes, Mr. Harry. A woman's penny hand, I'll wager, must be the man's wife. Aye, Mr. Harry Macy, ship Jeroboam. Why, it's Macy, and he's dead!
Poor fellow. And from his wife.
Let me have it.
Nay, keep it thyself. Thou art soon going that way.
Curses throttle thee! Captain Mayhew, stand by to receive the letter.
Haha! Yes, Ahab, that was weird. Now let's dissect this story. So, Starbuck retrieves the letter for the Jeroboam, finding a letter from Macy. However, Macy is dead.
And sorry.
This means the letter is a dead letter, or a letter that is never delivered to its recipient, cause he's dead. This highlights Melville's seeming perplexion with dead letters, as one of his short stories, Bartleby, the scrivener, deals with a lawyer who works in a dead letter office. The fact that the Jeroboam's letter becomes a dead letter shows that Macy entered a state of unknown. And Gabriel, rejecting this letter, shows that he doesn't want this unknown to be pierced. In this way, the older notion that when sailors die, they go almost to a limbo is shown, but not necessarily supported by Melville. The negative connotation in which this notion is shown shows Melville's disagreement with this notion. Furthermore, when Gabriel throws the letter back to the feet of Ahab, this foreshadows that Ahab will soon follow Macy.
To the bottom of the ocean!
Okay, guys, looks like our time's almost over. I know I've had a lot of fun, and you have too.